In 1973, a CIA director ordered the destruction of thousands of documents. He did it quietly, quickly, before anyone could stop him. But he was too late. A small batch of files had been misfiled in a financial records room. They survived, and when they were discovered 4 years later, what they revealed was so disturbing that it triggered a United States Senate investigation, shocked the world, and forced the CIA to admit something it had spent decades denying: that for over 20 years, the United States government had been secretly experimenting on its own citizens, without their knowledge, without their consent, using drugs, hypnosis, electroshock, and psychological torture, in search of one thing: the ability to control the human mind. The program had a name, mkultra, and this is what they did. To understand mkultra, you have to understand the fear that created it. It was 1950. The Cold War was accelerating. American soldiers captured in Korea were coming home changed, saying things they wouldn't have said before, confessing to crimes they hadn't committed, praising communist ideology on camera. The CIA called it brainwashing, and they were terrified. If the Soviets had found a way to reprogram the human mind, the United States needed to find it first. So on April 13th, 1953, CIA Director Allen Dulles authorized a program unlike anything the agency had ever attempted. It was called mkultra. Its mandate was simple: find a way to control human behavior, by any means necessary. The program had an unlimited black budget, no congressional oversight, no ethical review board. It operated in the shadows across 80 institutions, universities, hospitals, prisons, and safe houses spread across the United States and Canada. And it recruited scientists who were willing to do things that other scientists refused to do. One of them was a man named Sidney Gottlieb, a chemist, a CIA officer, and the architect of some of the most disturbing human experiments ever conducted on American soil. The early experiments focused on drugs, LSD in particular. The CIA believed that LSD might be a truth serum, something that could break down a person's resistance and make them say anything, do anything. So they tested it on prisoners who had no idea what they were being given, on mental patients who couldn't consent, on soldiers who were told it was a routine medical experiment, and on civilians who had no idea the CIA existed in their lives at all. One of the most disturbing operations was called Operation Midnight Climax. CIA operatives set up safe houses in San Francisco and New York. They hired prostitutes to lure men off the streets. They dosed those men with LSD without their knowledge. And then CIA agents watched through one-way mirrors, taking notes, for years. The men who were experimented on had no idea what had happened to them. Some had psychological breakdowns, some never recovered. None of them were ever told the truth. But the LSD experiments were only the beginning. In Canada, a psychiatrist named Ewen was conducting experiments so extreme that even the CIA's own officers described them as disturbing. Cameron believed he could erase a person's existing personality and reprogram them from scratch. He called it psychic driving. His patients, people who had checked into his clinic for depression, anxiety, ordinary struggles, were put into drug-induced sleep for weeks at a time. Weeks. They were subjected to electroshock therapy at voltages far beyond anything considered medically acceptable, up to 40 times more powerful than standard treatment. They were forced to listen to recorded messages on loop, sometimes for 16 hours a day, designed to overwrite their existing thoughts and beliefs. When they woke up, many of them didn't know who they were. They had lost their memories, their identities, their sense of self. Some forgot how to speak, how to feed themselves, how to use a toilet. They had come in as functioning adults. They left, in many cases, as shells. And Ewen was funded, in part, by the CIA. In November 1953, a man named Frank Olson attended a CIA retreat in rural Maryland. He was a government scientist, a biological weapons researcher, a husband and father of 3. At the retreat, Sidney Gottlieb covertly dosed the drinks of everyone present with LSD. Frank Olson had a severe psychological reaction. He became paranoid, withdrawn, deeply disturbed. His colleagues noted that he was not the same man. 9 days after the retreat, Frank Olson fell from the window of a New York hotel room on the 13th floor. The CIA called it suicide. His family called it murder. In 1994, Frank Olson's body was exhumed. A forensic examination found evidence of blunt force trauma to the skull, injuries inconsistent with a fall and consistent with being struck before going through the window. No one was ever charged. The full circumstances of Frank Olson's death remain, officially, unsolved. MKUltra officially ended in 1973. That was the year CIA Director Richard Helms ordered the destruction of all program files. He almost succeeded. But in 1977, a Freedom of Information Act request uncovered roughly 20,000 documents that had survived. Misfiled, forgotten, overlooked. What followed was a Senate hearing that transfixed the nation. Senators heard testimony about LSD experiments on unwitting civilians, about psychological torture, about Ewen Cameron's personality erasure program, about Operation Midnight Climax. CIA Director Stansfield Turner admitted publicly that the agency had conducted experiments on human subjects without their consent. He called it a dark chapter. He apologized, and then almost nothing happened. Sidney Gottlieb retired. He was never prosecuted. He died in 1999. Ewen Cameron died in 1967, before the full extent of his work became public. His victims eventually received a settlement from the Canadian government. Not the CIA, the families of MKUltra victims fought for decades for acknowledgement and compensation. Most received nothing. MKUltra ran for over 20 years. It operated across 80 institutions. It used at least 150 known human research subjects, and likely thousands more whose records were destroyed. It killed at least one man, destroyed the minds of countless others, and was carried out by people who believed genuinely that the ends justified the means. The documents that exposed it only survived because someone made a filing error. Think about that. The only reason you know this story is because of a mistake. How many programs like this left no mistakes behind? If this story stayed with you, subscribe. New hidden history every week, right here. And drop a comment. Did you already know about MKUltra, or was this new to you? I read every single one.